Madam Speaker, it was indeed an honour and a pleasure to request leave to introduce Motion 508. Be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly urge the Government to develop a province-wide strategy to combat the debilitating effects of Lyme disease, which at a minimum would include additional education for physicians and access to additional testing and treatment for patients. I'm sure that everyone in the Assembly has heard of Lyme disease. Lyme disease is not a usual topic of conversation unless you are a family member or are one of the unfortunate people to have contracted it. Then it is a topic of conversation each and every day, if not every waking hour. Motion 508 calls for the broadening of the treatment resources and options available to those who may potentially be suffering from Lyme disease. I first became aware of how serious this issue has become when two women in my hometown of Beiseker contracted Lyme. Unable to get local doctors or AHS to treat them, they went south of the border to the U.S.A, where they were tested. The test showed positive. Upon bringing their test home, they found to their dismay that the test results were not recognized in Canada and they were denied treatment. Two separate fundraisers were held and approximately $135,000 were raised to assist with costs to get treatment in American medical facilities. The tests done in Canada, Madam Speaker, are done in two stages. First, the ELISA test is done. If this shows a negative result, no further testing is done. According to the Centre for Disease Control, the ELISA test alone only detects about 30% of cases at first presentation. In Canada, if it shows a positive result, a second test is done, the Western blot. The Western blot test does have much higher accuracy, but is not done if the ELISA test is negative. By this time, the disease has advanced to a point where it is much harder to treat. Additionally, there are in fact two Western blot tests, IgC and IgM. Both tests should be done and are done in the United States, but are not often administered in Canada. One of the most frustrating things about the treatment policy in Alberta is that Lyme disease is treatable with antibiotics if caught within 2 to 3 weeks of the tick bite. Unfortunately, this is hard to do because even with the telltale bullseye rash around the bite, it seems to be very difficult to find a doctor with the necessary education to identify the disease and begin the required treatment immediately. Madam Speaker, this problem will only get worse if we do not address it very soon. We all know that climate change exists. I will leave the specifics of that debate for others at another forum. Very much like the pine beetle problem that we are experiencing in Western Canada, we can expect the tick-borne disease problem to increase. With warmer winters, we are not seeing insects killed off by prolonged cold spells. Recently, Bill C-442, the Canadian Lyme Disease Strategy Act, submitted by Green Party MP Elizabeth May, was passed unanimously in the House of Commons. Not a single MP voted against it. The first and so far only Green Party legislation to pass in the House of Commons. In Ontario, NDP MPP Michael Mantha's Motion 13 to create a comprehensive and integrated Lyme disease strategy also passed unanimously on November the 27th, 2014, again with all party support. So, Madam Speaker, I would ask the same of all members of this Assembly. I ask them to pass Motion 508, and let's get on with helping patients, their families, and their loved ones in getting through this difficult and very painful time. This motion will ensure Albertans have the ability to extensively be tested for Lyme disease. This motion takes into account treatment standards that previously exist and will move forward to make more testing procedures and treatments which are necessary and indeed vital to treatment available. I invite all members to join me in discussing this important piece of legislation so that we may ensure the safety and the good health of all Albertans. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.